To the Jays for Down podcast. I'm your host Jay, and I'm here today with Coach Temario Baldwin. He does a couple of things. Hosts his own podcast as well. Coaches football. So glad to have him on today to talk some college football here. As coaches, you are aware, we got the college football playoff is set. A lot of people are in disagreement with the teams that are in. Some of the teams that are in. So we'll talk about that. But how you doing?
Man, I've been doing well, man. Coming off a state championship, man. I'm down at Providence Day School now. And so we just won our third straight state championship a couple of weeks ago. So I'm ecstatic about that. And then other than that, though, like I said, the podcast, the underrated podcast, I'm still pumping out information. And I just started my sports consultant business. And so now it's more so about evaluating, helping guys get recruited, helping parents and kids understand the recruiting process, and it's giving them as much, guidance and information, whether it be film and huddle breakdown and, advising in those ways, just anything I can do to help parents and families, gain, the opportunity that they want. So everything's been going well. I can't complain at all.
Well, that's good. That's good. Glad to hear that. Coach, like I said, craziness going on in the college football playoff world right now. So for people that don't know, the four teams that we got are we got Michigan, we got Washington, we got Texas, and of course the Alabama Crimson Tide, who much of the country is displeased with their admittance into the playoffs. So let me get your thoughts on that. Championship weekend and how that all played out. What are your thoughts on this?
Man, well, number one, man, you want to congratulate the four teams that was able to have a strong season and even be considered, to make the college football playoff. So, hats off to those guys and those coaches and those programs. And then you have to look at, the other side of it, and you feel terrible for the Florida State kids in the community and, the state as a whole, because we all know that they produce some really, really great some great talent. Historically have always been a hotbed of talent. And so you kind of feel bad for those kids and those coaches that, in a sense, man, they've done everything the right way, right? You ask kids to work hard every day. You ask them to commit to something bigger than themselves. And then you ask them to buy into what their coaches what their coaches are telling them and what they're coaching them to do. And you go undefeated and you don't get the opportunity because of the powers that be who make the decision, the playoff committee. You kind of have to go back and you have to look at that Georgia and Alabama game. And I think if Georgia, finds a way to beat Alabama, Florida State gets in with no question, right? A 2-loss Alabama team is not strong enough to get in the football playoff. But the thing that threw everything off and what people have, obviously been talking about is the fact that Alabama was able to rebound and beat Georgia, who was number one for a majority of the year. And that kind of punched their ticket into the playoff, man. So I feel bad for those kids. I definitely understand it, in terms of, them being disappointed, how it feels to be disappointed as a coach and the time that you invest in it, man. So hopefully with them expanding the college football playoff, we avoid these type of situations. But hey, it makes for a good conversation, right? It makes for a good conversation piece. It adds to the viewership of the consumers, and those consumers being the fans. So it's a two-sided story, and you just hate that disappointment has to be one of those stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an Alabama fan.
Yeah.
But yeah. I'm not one of those fans that's gonna sit here and say, oh yeah, no, I listen, I completely agree with you. I think, Florida State, they had a great year. I was rooting for them too. They were like my second team. I love what they've done down there. Coach Norvell, he's a great coach, and Jordan Travis, an awesome player, and hate that he got hurt, and they got a bunch of talented players on that team, and it does suck that they didn't get in, because I would have liked to see them play in the playoff. But unfortunately, it's at the end of the day, it comes down to money, viewership. It's all business.
Man, it's big business. It's big business.
So that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. And we all knew, were they really going to leave an SEC team out of the playoff? Like, come on,
Yeah.
You know, like it's like you have to ask yourself that question: were they really going to leave out an SEC team, whether it would have been
What
Georgia or Alabama?
and well, then you have to look at it like this as well. Like I said, it's a lot of different sides and a lot of different things that unfold. Like you said, viewership dollars, right? People are probably going to be more so excited and prone to probably look at a Michigan-Alabama game, two perennial nationally ranked teams, you know what I mean? Huge tradition of winning, playing against each other, or, are viewers going to per se look at, Michigan and Florida State without, Florida State being, fully manned and being able to offensively play at the level that they've been playing at all year. And I hate that any kid feels like it's his fault. I think that the Travis kid, took a lot of pressure and feels a lot of pressure regarding that, because you have a lot of analysts, you have a lot of people in places that are talking about, well, Jordan Travis being hurt played a major role, in Florida State, not being as strong as they were. And if you know anything about the bylaws of the football playoff, it does say in there that the availability of players plays a major role into their decision as well, man. So it's just so much and so many different angles that you can talk about in terms of how this thing played out and how decisions were made to, let Alabama in or leave Florida State out. I don't think it the only thing that could possibly make it end well and die down some of that conversation is Alabama running the table and winning the national championship, and then the playoff committee could say, we got it right. And, people have to kind of give them a nod. They peaked at the right time. They beat Georgia. They were able to, rebound and, they beat Michigan and then whoever they play in the national championship. So it's just so much, man. I just, like I said, it just sucks for those kids being disappointed.
Yeah, it does. It really does suck, and I couldn't imagine that. I mean, you have an undefeated season and you've been playing great football all year. Your starting quarterback goes down, and I get it. I totally get, like I said, I'm not, one of those fans just like, oh, well, no, I get it. I understand that. Like I said, Florida State was like my second team I rooted for this year, besides Alabama, of course. And it sucks. And as a player, because you work so hard the whole season, man, you're talking about, training on the off season and, in the winter and spring practice and summer workouts. And then you go to the fall and a gruesome season. And you get to this point and you can't, So you're a coach. So tell me, like, if you were like Mike Norvell in this situation, what are you expressing to your guys right now during this time? It's like, what, as you're getting ready to play in the Orange Bowl here.
Well, the good thing about it is that, Coach Norvell and his staff will have time to kind of debrief, and let the smoke clear in a sense. And I think, giving the kids some time off and some time away, and not necessarily, away from football, but I think to take time and kind of allow them to process their feelings, right? Now is a great time to sit down as a team and as a staff, and then as a staff and a program, and kind of, talk about, how your players feel, what they think. Because that's the most important thing. We as coaches, we pay so much attention to schematics and game planning and all of these different things. But I think now is the time to kind of focus on, the well-being of your team from a mental aspect, right? And so you kind of take some downtime because you have time before you play in your New Year's Six bowl, to kind of come together, now as a family, right? Let's reset. We still have a great opportunity. We're still playing in the New Year's Six bowl. And, now we have a chance to really, the same way that I just said, Alabama has a chance to kind of show that the playoff committee got it right. I think Florida State also has an opportunity now to kind of show the playoff committee that they got it wrong. Right. And that's what you kind of hope for. It's triumph in every story. Right. You always want to see, the great things that come out of every disappointment. Right. And so I think the biggest thing is how Florida State responds to this disappointment as a program. I think it will speak volumes for them, the kids, and the Florida State institution as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. You said a good coach, and he's got to, because mentally, football is like any sport. It's obviously it's a physical game. But a good majority of it is mental too.
Right.
It's so much like you have to be in a good headspace, whether it's in the game, in practice, working out, whatever. Meetings, like you have to, your mind has to be right. So I think, like you said, giving these guys time to kind of let the smoke blow over and chill and kind of reset, and just kind of, just come together as a family, not just a team, but a family, and just kind of get ready for the bowl game. And speaking on that note, Coach, this has been a question for a long time with bowl games. I don't know how you feel about this, but I want to know, like, players, especially players that are poised to be high draft picks, should they play in the bowl game or not?
Man, I think, oh man, so it was a question that I posed on Twitter earlier today, and the question was, is winning being diminished by individual performances and accolades, right? As a competitor, you always want to go out on a high note. And if you are the leader in the face of a program or a team and you've been that all season, I think it's only right that you finish what you start with your guys. That's the sign of true leadership, right? No, you didn't, perhaps finish with the record and opportunities that you felt that you should have had. No, you didn't make it to the college playoff. That's understandable. And, I get all of those things. But as a leader, as a competitor, on one side, man, you can't leave your guys like that. For people that you say you committed everything to and you did everything for, I think you have to, finish what you start. You have to be committed to that. On the other side of it, this thing has become such big business, right? And kids and families are now, putting themselves in position for what's next. And, obviously for a lot of these guys that are deciding to decommit from playing in bowl games with their teams, they're taking a strategic business approach from it, right? Now I have to protect my investment. Do I want to risk injury playing in a bowl game that's not of, much significance, or, what may happen, or I may have a bad performance that could possibly diminish my draft stock. Anything can happen. And that's kind of how I think, these kids and families and advisors, whoever they're working with and whoever they're going through this process with, those are probably some of the decisions that they're tasked to make. So again, everything is two sides, right? I understand it from being committed to your team and your coaches and your program to finish what you start. And then the other side is a business aspect of it. I have to protect my investment for what's coming. So it sucks because, you put your team, like Jordan Foster, right? Your team, may not perform as well as they are capable of because I don't have that star power with me. And that could possibly hurt your team, in the long run. So, I get it from both sides, but I wish some of them, from a coach's standpoint, I wish they would stay committed to playing these bowl games.
Yeah. It's two good points there, right? It's like you don't want to mess up your stock and either play bad or get hurt or something like that. But at the same time, this could be a chance not only just to say like being committed to your team, being that leader. Hey, I'm going to play with you guys till the end of the season. This game, after this game, will be the end of our season, not when we lost in our championship game. This game, but at the same time, and you could also it's a chance for you to put good film out there too.
Right.
To add to that, like hey. Go out there and just play hard. Use that anger and as motivation for not getting in there, and you go play ball and put your best tape out there.
That's fact. And then as and then to add something else to it, as an evaluator, as a scout, as a coach getting ready to go through the process of draft boards and digging and finding information. for me, that would speak volumes to me, right? I get it. Like I said, the business aspect, I definitely understand it. But in the thick of things, what kind of kid am I really getting? Am I about to make this investment in? Are we investing in a guy that's going to come in and, say we're not in a race to win the division, or we're not in a race to win to go in strong in the playoffs? Are you going to decide to quit playing? Or, are you going to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to, hang it up after game 10 and, start focusing on preparing for next season and whatever may have it. Right. So I guess, the character of a kid is actually tested in that decision as well. Right. I want a kid that's going to go to battle for me in the program, no matter what the circumstances are. Right. The true test of a man when he faces adversity. Right. And I think that's something that, coaches and scouts and, evaluators, I think those are things that they struggle with. They say, they want certain characteristics in a kid. And they want, a kid to be a certain way and have a certain moxie about themselves. But deep down, can we really say that we're holding these kids accountable to that? Right. Every coach has a little bend and wiggle. Right. They have some things that they'll deal with and some things that they won't deal with, depending on the caliber of the player. But I think it should be I think it should be straightforward all times. It doesn't matter if you're an elite kid. It doesn't matter if you're a third tier, bottom tier kid. The standard is the standard. That's one thing that coaches like to promote, and that's what they like to say. Right. Yeah. What exactly is going to be your standard? Is your standard based on who it is that I'm dealing with, or is the standard going to be the standard across the board, no matter who you are? And I think those are the things that, coaches kind of struggle with when they, make evaluations on certain kids.
Yeah, and it's cool hearing that perspective, man, because we don't really think about that side of it. It's like what the coaches are having to do during this process of time and dealing with these players, it's because the character is a very important thing, at least to a lot of coaches, and it should be. So sure. That's a good point that you made there. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, it'll definitely be an interesting playoff, and we'll see what happens there. But kind of switching gears here, still within the realm of college football, though. But Colorado coach,
Prime, baby, Prime.
Coach Prime, yes, Coach Prime. Love Coach Prime, and what a season it was for him and his Buffaloes. They. Not season they wanted, maybe, finished 4-8. I mean, granted, some people were only picking them to win 2 games, maybe 1. So what's your kind of sum up of their season, and, how can they bounce back next year?
Well, first off, man, you have to respect, what Coach Prime is doing and what he's trying to do, in the likes of college football, right? I think, Deion Sanders himself has, put, college football on notice, but I also think he's helped transcend it, into a different space, right? Yeah. Of course, the win-loss record doesn't show everything that he was able to do in a small amount of time over the course of the year at Colorado. But you also have to look at what he did speaks volumes, right? Yeah. Colorado, received a lot of notoriety, a lot of TV, a lot of press, a lot of eyes, a lot of, just a lot of everything, right, to that program who is perennial, been at the bottom, right? And so when you take away the win-loss record and you just look at the when you take away the win-loss record and you kind of look at the pedestal that those kids were put on and everything that came along with, their season, the headlines, the writers, the journalists, the media, even Shador with the timepiece, kind of, what I mean? So the platform that Deion was able to create for Colorado that hasn't, I gotta, you gotta go back to the 90s to think about something, great that Colorado has done, and so the platform that he was able to give, that school and that student body and those kids, I think he did a phenomenal job, right? And I think that was one of the goals going into it. But I also think, of course, the win losses, didn't come as Dion probably wanted. But you have to look at everything starts at a foundational level. And I think Dion is doing a great job. There was mass exodus when he came. There was mass exodus, in the midst of everything now, but that's the nature of college football, right? You can't just look at Colorado and say, oh, this kid's leaving, that kid's leaving. What's going on? What is Dion doing? It's kids leaving from all over the country, from wherever program, right? So you have to kind of take that out of it. Dion's job now, I think where they kind of fell short, and Dion, he alluded to it. I think most people allowed it to go over their heads. They just wasn't strong in the trenches.
Yeah.
They were not able to control the line of scrimmage on either side of the ball, offensively or defensively. They were not able to protect their prize investment, and that being Shedeur Sanders at quarterback. He took a lot of, if not the most hits in the country this past season, which, probably contributed to his back injury later on in the season. So I think from a athlete standpoint, I think Dion has, what he needs. He probably needs a couple more guys, maybe 3 or 4 more guys on both sides to solidify that. But I think if Dion can solidify the trenches, offensive line and defensive line, and kind of get back to, dominating in those areas or either at least building towards it, I think you'll see Colorado probably be a 6 to 7 win team next year.
Yeah, and that's a fair jump. I think a lot of people were thinking that when Dion came there, they were automatically gonna. No, that's not how. You and I both know.
No.
It takes time for programs to build up and to, like you said, lay a foundation. You're not gonna become a championship team overnight. That doesn't happen.
Right.
Heck, even Nick Saban's teams haven't. But
he had to build it. He had to build it to where it's at now too. Everybody, exactly. Like I said, it's all a foundation, right? You got to lay your foundation first.
Yep, that's how every good building, every good house is built. You have to have that solid foundation. And to win, you're going to have to be able to protect your quarterback. You can't turn the football over, and you gotta get stops. And those are some of the major key components to winning football games. And Colorado wasn't able to do a couple of those things throughout the year, which is why they weren't as successful as they wanted to be. So,
Mm-hmm. Nah, that's facts. You hit it right on the head, bro. But, I think, for the people that thought that Dion was going to come to Colorado and go from 1 win to 8 to 10 wins in his first year. Now, don't get me wrong, that would have been a remarkable story, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's even a remarkable story that they won 4 games. Like, you're talking about a program that has been in the bottom of the college football landscape. I don't even want to say in the Pac-12 or whatever. Colorado has been in the bottom. They haven't even been in a conversation, right? So to go from 1 win to 4 wins, I think jumping to 6 to 7 wins next year is realistic.
Yeah.
If Dion had come in and won 10 games this year, that would have been an awesome job. But I would have been more concerned about the teams and the programs and the coaches that he played against, that you let him come in and take a bottom feeder all the way to the top in 1 year. Like, what does that say about the people and the coaches that he's playing against? Like, I would have been worried from that aspect. But, Dion is ultimately what we've learned. He's going to work hard and he's going to do what's in the best interest of his kids. And I think when you do those things, and you keep those things in the forefront along with, obviously, faith, family, love, football, all of those good things, it's only going to be a matter of time before you're at the top, and I think Dion will eventually, get those guys to the top. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to, win a national championship or nothing like that, but I think they can strive to be in a bowl game. Let's start there first, and then let's build from there.
Yeah, good. Yeah, exactly. Let's just take it one step at a time, one day at a time.
One step at a time, baby.
Yeah, that's how you gotta do it.
For sure.
So, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, Coach, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting. These next couple seasons are gonna be really good with college football. So I'm excited for it. And that pretty much wraps us up for the show today. Unless you have anything else you wanted to add. Floor is open.
No doubt, man. Well, always, man, Jaden, I appreciate you, man, for bringing me on to talk some sports, man. I'm always down to, chop it up and jump on and, talk about, what's going on in the sports world. For you guys that's listening, man, go over to, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon Music. Definitely tap into the Underrated Podcast, man. There's so many great stories, so much great information. Football-wise, we're in a big season of recruiting. The transfer portal just opened on Monday. And so, high school kids and parents, man, there's so much great information on the Underrated Podcast for you guys. Just go tap into it. Other than that, man, I appreciate you again for having me on.
Of course, Coach. Thank you for coming on. We always appreciate your perspective on things. Always good to, know things from a coach's perspective because I was a player, so there's some things that I still don't really understand, but hey, you helped me see some things differently. So we appreciate that insight, Coach. And we'll be talking very soon. All right.
No doubt, man. It's all love, man. Appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you, Coach.